Hi everybody, I'm First Alert Chief Meteorologist Stephen Bowers. I want to talk about some happenings in the tropics on this Sunday evening. Of course, if you're in Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, you've already been asking me a lot about this developing tropical system. It's in the Caribbean Sea right now, but it is heading toward the Gulf of Mexico, and it's finally starting to show some signs that it is coming together. This is actually a part of a much larger complex here that we probably don't talk a whole lot about, especially on the TV weathercasts. But one of the things I'm going to show you here is that this is part of a bigger system that's associated with the Central American monsoon, and it's called the Central American Gyre. Basically, it's a massive area of low pressure, very weak low pressure, very broad low pressure, and around this we'll get these little swirls of low pressure that will form and kind of pivot around the outer edge of that bigger massive low pressure area. This in the eastern Pacific, by the way, is a new tropical depression. This in the northwestern Caribbean Sea is where we're watching for signs of development now in the northwestern Caribbean, heading into the Gulf of Mexico, as I say. Now, I've been watching this today, and I can tell you that in the last 24 hours, the surface pressure out in this area has started dropping, which is one of the early signs that something is in fact happening. And it also does appear that there may be a circulation trying to establish itself just off the northeast coast of Honduras here. Now, I'm going to get into some computer model stuff. I'm not going to show you the spaghetti models because they haven't updated in my computer system yet. I have seen them on a couple of websites, but I'm going to talk my way through this and kind of give you an idea of what's going on. And I want to start with the steering influencers on this system. We're going to start with wind up at what we call the 500 millibar level. That's, in other words, how high you have to go off the ground before the pressure drops to 500 millibars. It's closer to 1,000, maybe 1,010 millibars down near sea level. Now, in that layer up at 500 millibars, which is about 30,000 feet above the ground, 25,000 to 30,000 anyway, there's a big area of high pressure that's centered right along the northeast coast of Texas and the southwest coast of Louisiana, and then a huge upper level low pressure trough that coincidentally brought us some rain to western Colorado and some snow to our mountains over the weekend. That is elongated and it stretches back into California and just off into the Pacific coast. So let's watch how all of this moves here over the next 24 hours as we get through our early Monday morning into Monday afternoon and evening. That high pressure is on the move and it slides off to the east, partially because it's being bumped out of the way by this low pressure trough that extends down into Texas by the time we get to midnight Monday night and into Tuesday morning. You see the southwesterly wind flow out ahead of this? This is a big player here in the forecast of this developing tropical system, which is even starting to show up in the upper level forecast here by midnight Monday night. Let's keep on going. This is going through Tuesday now. That high pressure continues shifting off to the east, and this low pressure trough just kind of slows down. You see, there's not as much movement of this. It's still here, and it's still elongated down to the south and over parts of South Texas here. And once again, we still have this strong southwesterly wind flow out ahead of it, which again is going to have a major implication in the forecast track of this developing tropical cyclone. This upper level low actually cuts off from the main flow. In other words, it just kind of stops moving, and we're going to keep that persistent southwesterly flow going over the top of the northern Gulf Coast here through midnight Thursday night and into Friday morning. And again, this is a big player here. Now let's look down at the surface at what's happening. And one of the reasons this is not a tropical depression or a tropical storm yet, even though we're starting to see some signs of circulation, you can kind of see in the wind flow right here how it kind of creates a bump and it never really circulates. It never gets a closed circulation. That's what we're looking for tropical development or tropical storm classification here. But we expect that this is going to happen probably late Monday or into Tuesday. The GFS model, which is the American model, is a very strong model, and it shows that this does develop by Monday night and early Tuesday morning, and it tracks off toward the northwest somewhat slowly, and then it heads toward the Yucatan Straits during the day on Tuesday and into Tuesday night. That puts it in the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. Now here's where things get a little tricky for us, because where exactly this develops will be very much a determining factor in, does this cross the Yucatan, does it cross Cuba, or does it come right up through the Yucatan Straits? Now, where it is at this point is going to determine when that upper level trough catches it from the northwest. Now this, again, the GFS GFS model shows that this is going to work its way around that high pressure ridge heading to the north, and then by Wednesday night and especially Thursday, here's 6 a.m., this is Mountain Time Thursday, by the way, that's about the time the southwesterly wind flow ahead of that big upper level trough starts to catch this. So you'll see that northward track start to turn a little bit more northeasterly, and that would favor a track toward maybe the Florida Big Bend, maybe as far west as about Panama City or Apalachicola. But if it's a little farther east, it may get a little closer to Tampa Bay. When I say a little farther east, I'm talking a little farther east when it actually enters the Gulf of Mexico in the 24 to 48, 72 hours before this. So this again is one computer model. I'm not saying this is exactly where this is going. There still is a lot of room for variation, and I'm not prepared to say that you're in the clear in the Pensacola area yet or even over around New Orleans, but what I will say is that this seems to be more favored for a northeastward track toward North Florida or the North Florida Peninsula. And so you see 6 p.m. again Mountain Time on Thursday. This is moving inland just to the east of Panama City and to the west of Tallahassee and heading up into Georgia, and then weakening by Friday and Saturday as it moves up into Tennessee and Kentucky. Again, that's one computer model. I want to show you another one. A lot of you asked me about the European model. It shows this same system starting to organize and come together, but you see it's a little weaker, first of all. The circulation is considerably larger and more broad, and you see how it's a little farther to the west here. Again, there's some issue with that, and the exact locations here are gonna matter here. But it still kind of catches up with the American model and maybe favors just slightly westward of the American GFS model, and still coming into the southeastern Gulf of Mexico through the Yucatan Straits late Tuesday night and early Wednesday morning. There's 6 a.m. again Mountain Time. This is going to continue toward the north, again tracking around that upper level high pressure area, and then the upper level trough swinging down from the north starts to catch this, according to the European model, maybe a little bit earlier, and that earlier southwesterly wind influence on this may send this more toward, say, the Florida Big Bend as opposed to even Panama City. So again, it's a very similar track, but maybe a little bit farther to the east ultimately by Thursday night and going into Friday, and then continuing that track inland overnight and then weakening over Georgia and Tennessee and Kentucky as it continues that track to the north on Friday and Saturday. So there's a whole lot of variation that is still possible with this, but I can say that again, it looks like it's going to favor the eastern and northeastern Gulf of Mexico, even if it does look like it's coming directly from the south toward Pensacola. And again, I'm not saying at all that you're in the clear in this in the Pensacola area or even as far west as New Orleans, but as long as this upper level trough does its job, it looks like this is going to be more of a Florida Peninsula or Florida Big Bend type storm. We've got some time to watch this, but in the meantime, I would encourage you to make sure you are prepared. Even if you're around Pensacola, go ahead and do those things that you're probably going to have to do anyway. Go ahead and get the bottled water. Go ahead and get the canned foods. Those are things you can eat and drink later anyway, even if this storm doesn't hit. And go ahead and make sure your gas is full in your cars. That's what I'm trying to say there. So again, this is going to be a very busy week for me, but I'm going to try and update this and monitor this as closely as I can for you between now and the end of the week. Just stay informed and stay prepared.